Okay, first I have to ask you, my God, the pandemic. You got COVID. How are you feeling?
I finally got COVID. I mean, we somehow toured from July to April with no one in the band getting COVID on the road. But finally in April, 5 of us got it in Europe. So I'm feeling much better. But I was not asymptomatic. I was, it was kind of unpleasant.
Was it like a bad cold? I mean, that's what people are describing.
A bad cold that sort of like is a lot of like congestion and coughing and fatigue. Like you just feel so crazily tired. And I'm someone who doesn't nap and has a hard time falling asleep. So it was really foreign for me to feel like I have to sleep immediately. Like I cannot stand up. So that was really weird.
Was that your kitty cat?
That's my cat. Marzie.
Marzie? It's a little girl or boy?
Marzipan. He's a boy. We adopted him during COVID. And he's so pretty. Isn't he so pretty?
Hey, Marzipan.
He's the prettiest cat. Come here, sweetie.
How old?
He's 6.
Aww.
He was living in a house in Oregon City with 6 dogs.
Whoa.
Because all the kids of the family came home during the pandemic with their dogs. And he was traumatized and hiding all the time. So they put him up for adoption. They loved him and had to let him go.
Now this is his
But I'm so lucky
home.
I got him. Oh.
Super beautiful.
He's a cutie.
You also are a mom.
I am.
Tell me about your boy.
Cameron is 13. He would not want me to say any of these things, but he's adorable, hilarious, sometimes annoying, and super like committed now to school. In 7th grade, he kind of like clicked in to wanting to do well and being engaged in his classes. He studied French from the age of 5 at the French American school, and so he speaks French, which my dad would have been thrilled about because my dad was part French and loved his French ancestry. And he's named after my dad, Cameron. And he's just like as cute as can be. He's so resilient. You know, when you go to the pediatrician, they're always like, resilience, it's very important. You know, Cameron's just naturally, he bounces back from like emotional stresses or whatever. He really, I can't even understand it actually. It's another awe-inspiring thing because he just has that innately. He has an adorable voice. He sings in a really high voice. He hasn't dropped his voice yet. And I like that as if he chooses to drop it. He hasn't chosen to drop that. He's like, my voice sounds like a girl. No, it doesn't sound that high, but he has a high singing voice and he plays piano sometimes. He took lessons, but he didn't really keep it up. He likes to draw. He's kind of a great all-around guy.
Does he ever come on the road with you guys?
He does. After he wasn't a baby and like he was with me until he was 15 months on all the tours, which was quite something. Then he stopped touring, but he'll come in the summer maybe for a week. And last summer he came and helped sell the merch. And he was like, this is going to be my summer job from now on. I almost didn't have a child because in my 30s, I was questioning all the time if I could have a child and do my job singing and what would that look like and could I handle it? And then I did, and I was so relieved because I'm so glad I did. But it's not been easy, and it changed everything. But I don't regret things, so it's like even something hard that happens or whatever, I always feel that I learn from things, and I would never change anything about my life or choices, even some of them that I probably should regret. But I just feel like it makes all of us who we are, you know? And Cameron's at a point where I feel like I can really enjoy being a mom. Well, you couldn't be good if you never been bad. You couldn't keep cool if you never gone mad. You couldn't be glum if you never been glad. And lemons give you lemonade. If you don't do the work, you'll never get paid. If you don't have a crowd, there's no parade. It may be trite, and I know it's cliched, but lemons give you lemonade. The glass is half full of sweet champagne. Some say it's half empty, what do they know? If you keep whining about the rain, how you ever gonna see the rainbow? Without the climb, you don't get the view. Without the crime, you won't have a clue. There is no rhapsody without the blue, and lemons give you lemonade. The glass is half full of sweet champagne. Some say it's half empty, what do they know? If you keep whining about the rain, how you ever gonna see the rainbow? Somebody's trash is somebody's treasure. Somebody's pain is somebody's pleasure. Somebody's ugly. That's the best part, and I messed up the chords. Can I just pick it up? Can I? Can I say that on TV? You can bleep me. All I want to do is be in this space, playing piano and writing songs and recording them. But I'm not here enough. And so when I come home, it's like oh my God, how do I remember how to do this? It's always like I'm learning it again. But I just have a simple setup where I have the piano mic'd, I have a vocal mic, and I have all my guitars and basses and stuff. And I can make, songs by myself, which is what I really enjoy a lot, because it's just refreshing to sort of have no logistics involved and just sit down whenever you want to. But there's definitely an incredible alchemy when you work with other people in a studio that's real. So I love that too. But for the day-to-day and the writing and the sort of starting of songs, it's really useful to have this space. And it's just right here in my living room, basically.
How many instruments do you play?
I play piano and guitar, and I can play bass like a person who used to play guitar and knows how to play bass notes. I'm not like Phil Baker and doing solos and stuff. I'm just playing along. But I come up with nice harmonies. I like simple parts. So I'm willing to pick up any instrument and try it and just play. Not good at the recorder.
The recorder,
really bad.
like the little flute recorder?
Yes, not good. Because my son had one from school and I tried to play it and then I was like, this sucks. I'm going to order a real one. And then I was like, I still can't make this sound good. So I have ukuleles. I have 3 different ukuleles. That's a cavaquinho, which I don't really play. That is a dulcimer. There's a Fender bass, and then there's the Hofner bass, which was Paul McCartney's bass. And there's a Martin guitar, and there's a Strat electric guitar. And then there's a lot of percussion stuff, bongos, congas, a cymbal. I love playing cymbals, and in fact, in Pink Martini, I often go over and play cymbal washes during songs, and it's so much fun because it's like this drama that you add, and it's like incredible. It just adds so much, and it's really satisfying. What else? I have little my children's instruments, like a child's drum, but it actually has a good sound. My parents' drum from Africa that doesn't not have a good sound. A keyboard, electric keyboard. Mm-hmm. A lot.
So I'm looking around behind you at your album covers.
Yeah.
Are those some of your favorite records? Tell me about.
They are. They're some of my favorite performers, or just nostalgic. Like I have Ella Fitzgerald over there. Oh. I have Linda Ronstadt on her roller skates, yes. And that just reminds me of my dad and my childhood. Jimmy Cliff, The Harder They Come, which reminds me of my parents. Maria Moldauer, who also reminds me of my parents. Donna Summer, which she was the first inspiration for me to sing. That live album in the center is the album where I bought it with my own money when I was 8, and I was obsessed. I'll show you the pictures. You actually have to see this. So it's how much fun if you're 8 years old, right?
Oh yeah,
it's like,
I remember
her hair is a cutout. You're like, this is her hair. And then you're like, oh my God, she's beautiful. Look at her makeup. And I'm like, I want to wear that and have that eyeshadow. I was just intrigued. There she is on stage with lots of people. And this was my favorite. She's wearing a white feather outfit with her daughter, Mimi. And this is the sad twist of the story that I'm telling. So this song she wrote about Mimi's song, is about how I know sometimes you ask yourself why I'm never there, but it feels like the whole world needs me. So I love you, but I'm gonna be gone a lot. I mean, it's just like when I was 8 and my mother had moved to New York and I was living with my dad, and she kind of looked like my mother, I was like, oh my God, she's my mother, and she's singing to her daughter about how she's not there. So it comforted me, and that sort of made my wanting to be a singer all the more potent. Like I just wanted to be like her. And then as I grew up, suddenly I'm singing Cameron's song. And I'm never there. It's really sad, actually.
Oh my God, it's a little like Cat's Cradle kind of thing.
Do you know that
God,
every day
yes.
I sing that to him? I'm like, you want to play lacrosse? My shoulder hurts from yesterday. Can we take a break? And then he's like, all right. And I'm like, cats in the cradle and the silver spoon. And then he laughs. It's our joke. But it's not funny.
Not funny,
it's
funny.
Really quite sad.
Oh my God.
So anyway, it's a really hard thing to be a mom and who's gone.
Yes.
And it's just, that was the thing about the pandemic that was so nice for me. I mean, I was with Cameron longer than I've ever been with him in his life.
Yeah, that's wonderful time.
Mm-hmm. Eugene, I said hello. Eugene, are you there, Eugene? Hey, Eugene, then we kissed. Once we lugged your friend into the elevator and went to write my number on a soggy paper towel. And the car went down. And when we were finished making out, we noticed that your skinhead friend was gone, long gone. And you looked into my bloodshot eyes and said, is it too soon if I call you Sunday? Eugene, Eugene, Eugene.
Speaking of family, I mean, the pictures that you have on the wall are amazing.
Aren't they amazing?
You're like the UN family. Can you tell me a little bit about the backgrounds of your parents?
Sure. Okay, so my mother, she's up there. My mother is the daughter of a Tuskegee airman and a teacher, Hackley and Mary Woodford. So my mom's black, my dad's white. My dad was white. My dad was a product of a half French dad and a WASP mother. They were WASPy, half French people, and they're from Boston originally. And my dad grew up there, like outside Boston. And my parents met when they were working at WGBH in Boston on TV. In fact, they were there when Julia Child was starting.
What did they do at the TV station?
My dad did the lights, and my mom was like a producer.
Interesting.
And that's where they met.
What year was that?
67,
wow.
I think. Because they met, and then they had my sister, maybe it was 66. They had my sister in 68. My mom thought my dad was 18 years old because he had his hair always in his face doing the lights, and he was total hippie looking. And then he asked her out, and she was like, he's so young. And then he drove up in a little, I think he had a convertible Aston Martin, and he picked her up, and she was like, how old are you? And he's like, he's older than she is. So he was 2 years older than she was. So she went on a date with him, and then they were together, and then they had my sister, then they had me, then they got divorced. And they were always friends. I mean, they loved each other till the day he died.
I think Boston, I mean, definitely some racial overtones in that city. Was that a problem for your parents back in the 60s?
Oh, yeah. I think we were lucky that like both sets of grandparents loved both of them. So that they were always very welcoming and loving. But the city, I mean, in the movie, my sister portrays like my mom trying to get a job in finance, and they're like, a black woman in Boston working at this firm is not really an option. You know, it just was not an option. So that was hard. We lived kind of, my mom bought an apartment that was in North Cambridge, sort of next to a housing project. We were like an apartment building that wasn't a housing project, but kind of looked like the housing project. And we were surrounded by all kinds of kids and like Korean, Black, Irish, you know, mixed race, half Jewish, half Black, you know, all these people in our building. And we had this great group of friends and we played in the neighborhood. Like we had the two apartment buildings had a swimming pool in between, which was kind of unexpected, not fancy, but just like a nice pool for kids and stuff. And then these parking lots on the front and the back, and then two side streets. So it was like a huge block. And we would play this game called Relivio that the guy Arthur, the oldest friend in the group, created. And it was like kind of like capture the flag and hide and seek, but you played it in such a huge area at night. I mean, we were so young, we were out till midnight playing Relivio, hiding under cars in the parking lot or by the dumpster. You know, I mean, it was so, I can't believe our childhood compared to Cameron's childhood.
You said your dad died young, but your mother is still alive?
80 years going strong.
80, I love to hear
She's
that.
right here. Look at her. This was her 80th birthday. She looks like she's 60.
She's beautiful.
She's so healthy. It's a knock on wood. So I took that picture of my dad when I was 10 that you saw upstairs. And then when I was 21, I was taking a printmaking class in college, and this is called monotype, where you put this thick black ink on a metal panel, like a flat metal panel, and then you take a rag and remove ink to make the white parts. So you're painting in reverse. It's like you take away to create the image, and then you run it through a press. So see how it's indented? The metal panel's pressed into the paper. And it's such a fun way of working. And I just like this eye very much because I feel his soul is right there. I can see it. I feel like he's looking at me. I mean, it's just weird. It's kind of overwhelming, actually. I don't stand here and stare at it that much. I mean, I see it all the time, but I don't really look into his eyes. But it's like he's trying to tell me something.
He'd be proud of you.
Oh my God, he didn't get to know that Pink Martini was big in France. He would have been so happy.
Yeah.
I think that would have been his happiest thing in his life. He loved France.
What a wonderful thing to be surrounded by the art and his memory and the photos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is really nice. I can show you a big painting I did in high school. If you want. It's at the head of my bed. It's me.
How long did it take you to do that?
I work very fast, which
you?
is why it's not precise. I mean, it's like, Matisse was my favorite artist. And so I would just be like, big gestures and and there's no fingers on her hand. You know, it's like she has paws. That's how fast.
That's how fast, but that's kind of, so what's your astrological sign?
Taurus.
You're a Taurus.
Yeah.
I'm a Virgo, so fast is like, that gives me anxiety.
Oh, really? You're
very
more methodical.
meticulous.
Okay.
But I think this could be good therapy for me.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Gestures.
Absolutely.
Grand gestures.
Yes.
I like working fast. Bess Ratliff's Feather. It's amazing. She lives here in Portland. She needs a show soon at a gallery.
Ooh.
Okay? Anyone who knows a gallery that's perfect for Bess.
And your
let
middle
me
name
know.
is Feather.
My middle name is Feather. My aunt, Dinny, my dad's sister, lived in Africa with her husband when they were quite, early parents. And they came back from Africa, and it was like that drum upstairs, that zebra drum, and just like so cozy. It was like this like eclectic coziness that I just felt like that's me, And so partially the fact that I don't spend a lot on fancy furniture, I just sort of make do with what I have by throwing a sheepskin over it or whatever. And I also cover the walls completely because I think it's because when I was little, my dad did that. And when I moved here, I didn't repaint when I moved in because we were so eager to get in. And then it's like the walls are full of pinholes and drab paint. So I just cover it with paintings. Not these walls, because I repainted this room, but the living room wall full of paintings. It's like, that's kind of the inspiration. It's just like, how much can you cover? I have an eye for the composition, like I really, because I'm a painter, so like I always thought about composition, but it's just, I think, and it's also like, for me, it's stressful if you have a tile pattern that's all the same, because it's like, but when I look at chaotic, crazy patchwork, I'm like, my eye settles because there's nowhere to look. You don't know where to look. And there's so many places to look that you just kind of relax. That's my whole style.
Well said. I like that.
So many places to look.
I've never heard that
you
before,
relax.
but I like it.
And these matryoshka dolls are the Russian dolls, right? My mother, everyone always asks me how I got my name, China. And my mom was pregnant and had a dream that she gave birth to one of these. And it was named Maya, which is my sister. And then inside, China. I've never done this before. Heather, Duncan, and little Cam. There's actually more. She didn't have that many kids in her dream. There's so many more. But anyway, she dreamt these names: Maya, China, Heather, Duncan, and little Cam. And that's why she named me China.
Where did feather come from?
Feather is, I think my parents were nervous when they were going to name me China, that like, are we making a mistake? And then, so for a few weeks, I didn't have a name. And they called me Little Feather because I was so tiny. Things changed after that. Not feather for life. In terms of like this house, when I moved in 17 years ago, it's like it was like a fantasy from my childhood, because we lived in that apartment I described, and my sister and I shared a room. It was a 2-bedroom apartment. My dad was a slob and my mom was in New York, so it was really messy. And I was always like begging my dad to clean it, and then he would, and then it would like get messy right away again. You'd watch it like falling apart before your eyes. And I wanted my own room, and I wanted to like design things. And so I moved into the living room and put a screen, like, the screens you can stand up, and made like my bed by the window and screened it off for a while, because I just needed to think I had my own room in the midst of all the chaos. I mean, it was so crazy. But all I wanted was to live in a house, because we actually lived in a house when we were babies, because the house my grandparents built in 1941 that my dad grew up in, we got to live in for free for a few years, and then they wanted to sell it, so we had to get out of there. And so I had this modern flat roof house fantasy from childhood. Lived in an apartment with like no agency over the space, and wanted to go to open houses every weekend with my dad, and begged him to buy a house, which we couldn't afford. And so we never had that. And so when I finally moved to Portland, it was so affordable back then to buy a house. I bought a house in Southeast and like did my thing to it and like transformed it, and it was so much fun. And then Adam and I bought this house, and it was like you walked in and it was like a 70s tree house, and it felt like this is my dream that I've been looking for. It had so much magic about it. But of course, that part of me that always wanted to rearrange furniture and design and like change things is always there. So it's, you know, I've been changing things on this house for years, and finally I built it's like an addition on the house. So it's just, I kind of want to be a designer or an architect, but instead I just work on my house.
You do a masterful job.
I love design.